Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Well, that's an ugly screen to start with. Maybe I should start with that one. That's better. No, that's not better. The text is in the way. Anyway, hey, welcome to the channel. I have some things planned today based on some issues that I've been exposed to by people who are working on this radio. And what I mean by that is that I constantly get questions. I get questions about how to do this, how to do that, how to make this work. And one of the things that I get common questions about the SD card and inputs and mixes. So I thought today that I would spend a little bit of time kind of going over some of the common errors that I encounter when I'm interacting with people who are asking questions about OpenTx. And a lot of that starts with Companion. Companion is a piece of software if you're not familiar with it, and we can take a look real quick at where to get it in case you're not sure. But Companion is a piece of software that lets you interact with your radio on your PC. And if you've followed the channel for any length of time, you know that I'm a very strong proponent of Companion because it's just a very handy piece of software that makes programming and radio management substantially easier than just using the knobs and dials and things on the radio. So if you've never used Companion, I'd suggest taking a look at it. All I did was I Googled OpenTx downloads, the very first link, I clicked on it, and then I went to OpenTx 2.3.11, and right here at the bottom, you can download the Companion installer and the SD card content. Okay, so one very fast question that I'll tackle right away is, hey, my radio is not supported. It's not supported. And I'm going to bring up Companion right now and show you when you make a radio profile, you open this little icon right here and you hit add radio profile, and here's a drop down list. Okay, everything you see in this list is what's supported. If it's not here, not supported. It's that simple. The big one that comes up is Radio King. Radio King's not supported officially. So if you have a Radio King, you can use a Jumper T18 profile, but I'd recommend avoiding the firmware download on the Radio King because we've seen that create problems. All right, so that's the first thing I wanted to cover was how to get Companion, where to get it, and how to install it. All you do to install it, depending on your platform, is you grab this installer. If you're on Mac, you grab the disk image, or Linux, there's a Debian package. I'm sure you guys know how to use these things. Just install it, run the installer like normal, and when you're done, you'll wind up with a nice install of Companion that you can use to configure your radio. Okay, that was step number one. Step number two, and I'm going to start with a blank screen on purpose because this is another one that I get all the time. And it's Companion doesn't work. And I'm going to tell you guys right now that I've been using Companion for 7 years, and I've never had a problem having it not work. It's not that Companion doesn't work. It's just something else going on with your computer, and I want to show you how to troubleshoot that issue, okay? So Companion, and I'll just give you an example right now. If I go to read my radio settings, I get an error, and it says that no radio was found, all right? And the reason that you get these errors is because you have to have a clean connection to your computer first. So if you're not aware of it, if you've never done it before, I'll just show you real quick. On the top of the radio, there's a USB-C port right here. It's on the top, not the bottom. There's one on the bottom too, but that's not for using the PC interface to your computer. That's not what it's for. That one on the bottom is for charging. You don't use that to connect to your computer. Use the one on the top. And you may think that's confusing. I'm sorry. That's the way it is. It's the way it is. So there's a USB-C port right there on the top. And what you want to do is connect to it. So you plug your USB-C cable, and they gave you one with the radio. And if not, they're cheap. And then you'll notice right there on the screen, there's a pop-up that says, would you like to use this? And you should see this pop-up. There is a way in settings to specify one thing all the time. And so, for example, if you don't want to ever use your radio as a joystick, then you can say, look, every time I plug in the computer, just mount the SD card. You can do that. That's fair ball. Windows. Good job, Windows. But anyway, fair ball. if you always want to use the SD card, or you may always want to use it as a joystick, but I recommend just leaving it. Just leave the default, and then you can choose when you fire up the USB connection which way you want to go. So to activate one of these choices, just use the jog dial and select, in this case, I'm going to select USB storage. So I'll do that. And then once I've done that, of course, during a video, cats and kids, right? Let's try it again. So I'll plug back in and I'll hit USB storage. There you go. You hear that bong, bong, bong on the computer. That's important. This is a super important step and it can't be skipped. It just can't be skipped. There's two windows that come up, all right? The two windows that come up, one says TX16S, and it's got these little firmware files. Just leave those alone. Close that. You don't need that. That's for the radio. That's not for us. And the other window that comes up is this one, okay? And I want you to take a good look at this directory listing because this is important. If you don't see this, nothing else is going to work. Now, unfortunately, I can't get into a troubleshooting setup scenario, deal with you on how to get this to work. What I can tell you is that in my experience with these radios, if you have a functioning computer with the USB hardware that works correctly, that every single time I've plugged this radio in, I've been able to get this, what you see on the screen. It's not a problem. I get that. Of course, during the video, I got an error for some reason. It's because I didn't make a selection, I think, and the driver timed out. That's what it was. But at any rate, every time I've ever plugged it in, I get this screen. And if without this screen, you just simply can't go any further. Okay. So before you worry about this is like building a house, right? These are foundational steps. You have to plug the radio in. You have to use the SD card mount option. And then you have to see this screen. If you don't see this, stop and figure it out. Okay. You have to figure it out. But once you have this, and you have this models directory with all these little goodies in here, and you have this radio directory with those two little goodies in there, I can assure you of one thing: Companion's going to work because this is where it's looking for the data it needs. Okay. So that is a super important step. And now I'll show you, oh, look, I have this. This is another problem. Look, it says Radio FreeSky Tyrannus X9. That's wrong. That's wrong. I don't want that. I want my TX16S as my profile. Okay, so I've got that selected now. Now that we've covered the foundation, we've got a good USB connection. We see the right directories on the radio. We can hit this little button that says Read and Import Models and Settings. And once you've done that, that's what you're going to see every single time. Okay. And I can tell you guys, man, I've done this. I've done this 1,000 times. This is what's going to happen, but the fundamentals have to be there. Okay. So regarding troubleshooting Companion, there's less about Companion, I think, and more about the computer and the SD card. All right. These are super important steps. Okay. With that said, I wanted to cover another little thing that I see all the time, and that's SD card management. So here's what happens. I get people that call me or text me or get on Discord and they say, hey, I'm trying to put the SD card content on my radio and it doesn't work. I get an out of space message. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just I'm downloading the SD card contents. It's going to take a little bit of time. So we'll talk while it does that. So here's what I want to do just to kind of mess with you guys. Watch this. This is my radio. Okay. Bam. I'm just going to delete it. It's gone. My radio's gone. I just erased my radio, and I'll show you. I'm going to prove it because I'll switch to the big screen. Here we go. Come on. Oh, wrong button. There we go. So look, we're on the big screen, and as soon as this is done erasing, here, I'll go back to the workspace so you can see it. As soon as this is done erasing, I'm going to show you what a scratched radio looks like with no SD card content. So I'm going to show you that. Okay. And it's just one of those things. I just constantly get this question. Hey, I'm trying to install the SD card contents. I'm out of space. Well, if you do it right, you're not out of space. You're missing a step. Okay. And I'm sorry. When I tell you guys this, I'm not trying to be blunt. I promise you that. I'm just trying to help you get to the problem. I'm helping you resolve the problem. So I'm just telling you what the facts are, right? Yes, we'll erase everything. We want it all gone. Okay. Now there we go. Now watch. I'm going to switch over to my big camera. And look, when I unplug this, bad radio data, press any key. I'm going to make it worse. I'm going to turn it off. You see this angry red face on the LED? It doesn't like that. So now I'm going to turn it back on. Okay. Everything's wrong. Bad radio data, press any key, storage preparation. It wants me to do a radio calibration. If I exit out of that, I've got nothing. If I long press my model button and hit model select, I've got nothing. Everything is terrible right now. Everything terrible. This is a disaster, right? Really, it's not. Okay, so let me explain why it's not. The first thing I'm going to do is reconnect the radio. So we've already talked about this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. And I'm going to select SD card. Okay, so SD card. There we go. SD card is selected. And guess what I see on my screen? We'll go back over to the workspace, and you guys see that I see the normal stuff on my screen. But look, the radio made these two directories. It made radio and models because they weren't there, and it doesn't like not having those. So I erased them again because I'm persistent like that. Okay, now I'm going to go back up to the top, and I'm going to find my SD card, and I'm simply going to drag my backup copy, and I'll talk about the backup in a minute too. I'm going to drag my backup copy over to my radio. Okay, and the first thing I want you to see is there's no errors about size. And by the way, I only have a 2 gig card in here. Just a 2 gig card, that's it. All right, so we'll let that go, and while that's happening, I'm going to check on our download, and oh, it still says 10 minutes left. So we have to let that download. Unfortunately, that's going to take a little time. Okay, while that's working, I'm not going to let the grass grow under my feet. I saw a question when I got started. Please show us how to extend the limits to a 180-degree servo, or show us how to get a 180-degree servo work at 180 degrees. Let me show you how to do that real quick. The first thing I have to tell you is there's no industry standard on SD card travel distance with regard to PPM US. So pulse width modulation, there's no standard other than 50 messages per second. That's it. So this process can vary per servo. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not telling you guys this is the universal answer, okay? Let me be clear about that. I'm not telling you that if you have a servo that has more than 90 degrees of travel that you should do this. What I'm telling you is that you have a servo that has more than 90 degrees of travel and you've got your rates set at 100% and you don't get the full travel, you may have to extend your limits, all right? Be very clear about that. I'm not telling you this is a universal thing to do. So the way I'm going to show you how this works is I'm going to create a model, and I'm going to cancel, and I'm going to open that model up, and I'm going to look at the mixes. So you see right here, I've got a weight of 100% on my aileron. So we're going to use this just for an example and say this is the aileron servo. Okay, I've got a weight of 100%. When I go into the simulator, I want to point out what's going to happen over here on the channels and mixer screen. So watch what happens. Let me just lock this. Let me, there we go. Hold horizontal. So I'm going to move my ailerons and look what happens over here on the side. You see on my channel output, I've got 100% and a mix 100%. Now, if your servo at 100% only goes half the distance, half the travel distance, then you're probably going to have to extend limits. So here's what I'm going to suggest you do. Close out of this, go into your setup, and under the setup screen for your model, you want to click on extend limits. Okay, extend limits. Now we'll go back to our output screen, and I'm simply going to set the output max to -150 and the max to 150. But don't do that. Don't do that with a real servo, and I'm going to tell you why, because you could damage it. What I'm going to suggest you do is try 110, and then on your max set it at 110. Now let's take a look at the simulator and see what happens. When I lock the horizontal throw for the aileron and I move it all the way to the side, look at the output on channel 1. You see how it's at 110? Okay, so now what that's doing is it's sending more pulse width to the servo. The reason I suggest you start at 110 and not 150 is because you can damage things if you're not careful. So start at 110 and see if it's working the way you expect. Listen to the servo and make sure it's not making some ungodly sound that's not happy, and go from there, okay? So 110, that's how you extend the limits. Again, I got to re-emphasize this. It's so important for me to get this point across. Not all servos are going to react the same way. You should have 180-degree servos that will work fine with a PPM range of 998 to 2012, okay? There's servos that do it. I've had them. But I'm also telling you that if you are using that default pulse width and you're not seeing that 180-degree travel, then you may have to extend your limits and increase the pulse width that you're sending to the model. Now, if we click on the model setting, you can see on this screen right here, how it says 2063, that's 110%. The normal throw for radio is 2012. Okay, so if I'm at 100% and not extending the trims or the limits, you should see 2012 in this field and 998 on this side. But you can see because I've increased the throw, I've extended the limits, I have a higher pulse width. Okay? Okay, so there we go. That's it on the extended limits thing. And if you want to go crazy with it, you can set -150 and you can set 150. And if you do that, if your servo responds to a higher pulse width, then you're going to see it. So I will click on the model button and click it again, and I'll show you that we're way up there. You see how on the screen, how we've got 150%, and that shows the microseconds at 2268. Remember, the default value is 2012. So we've gone up 50% on each side. Okay, and we've gone up 50% on the low side as well. So that's how you extend. Okay, that's it for that. Let's see how our download is doing. And I want to see if my, oh, there, we got our, do we have our card contents copied over? Nope, it's still copying, and our download is still going on. Well, that was perfect. That was good. That was a good use of time. Oh, it still says 11 minutes left for the download. Wow, they're moving slow today. Okay, so back in Companion, a couple other things I'll show you while we wait regarding reading settings and handling files. Once you have your radio connected, and right now I do have a radio connected, but I don't have my data over there, so we have to wait. But you have a couple of different options when it comes to managing your data. And one of the more important ones is using the SD card synchronize function for the radio. So it's not going to work really well right now because I just deleted everything, but I'm going to show you how to set it up, and I want to show you a couple of tricks while we're at it. Okay, so Synchronize SD card. There are two different ways you can do this. One is just in Windows. So if you're in Windows and you just want to manage your files yourself, you can. You can drag stuff, you can copy, it works, it's fine. You can do it that way. There is also a capability within Companion to do synchronization. So look at some of the options here. I've got a local folder that I specify as my server, and I've got a radio folder. That's the place on the computer. Remember what I told you. If you don't have these fundamentals working, nothing will work. So remember, this E drive, in my case it's E, has to be mounted. If it's not mounted, this is going to fail. Okay, then you have an option for sync direction, and I really think they need to correct this because it says both directions to destination folder first, but they don't use the phrase destination folder. They use local folder and radio folder, so that's a problem. And they say, well, okay, you can only do it from the, you have an option to do it from the source folder to the destination folder, or from the destination to the source. So you look at this and you say, well, I don't know which one's which. Well, let me show you a real simple way to do it without creating any issues for yourself. Okay, pick one. It doesn't matter which one. And just put a little check mark in this box called test run only. Okay, and then when you do that, when you hit start, you'll see what happens. You'll see what happens. Look what happens here. It says test run, we're copying from E, and you see this little arrow right here that says E to the server. So what they mean when they say from destination to source, they're treating the server folder or your PC folder as the source, and they're treating the radio as the destination. Okay, does that make sense? So you have an up arrow that says only from destination folder to the source folder. Okay, and when because I put it on test run only, nothing happened. We didn't actually copy anything. The software is just telling me what it would have done. Okay, so you have this option that's really handy for managing your data. And the reason I like it is because if you do things in Companion or you do things on your radio, and say you go to the field and you do something on your radio, you come back and you want that information brought over to Companion, and while you're in Companion you do some work and you want to send it down to your radio, you can use this tool to synchronize everything up. Okay, so that's the magic of it. But here the trick is, click this little test run only box, and when you do that, it'll just show you what it's going to do. It's not actually going to do it. Okay, so I'm going to close that because I don't want to fiddle with that right now while we're doing a copy. Oh, there we go. We've got our copies done. So let's see, that's the way this is the manual method in Windows that I just talked about, right? I just took my backup and I dragged it over to my card. Okay, so let's go back to the radio real quick. Let me bring up the big camera. There we go. The big camera's up. I'm going to unplug the SD card, and it's probably going to reread everything. Weirdly enough, it just kind of, yeah, see, it just kind of rereads everything. And there we go. My radio's back. So it was that simple. when I had a radio that was blown up. It had nothing. It had nothing. It had no models, no radio data, no calibration, no nothing. All gone. You guys saw that. And it was that simple just to restore it because I had a backup copy on my computer. So I always recommend, do you guys back up your cards? Okay, that's the first thing you should do, is back up your card. And if you're using Companion, use Companion to back it up. But if you don't want to use Companion, you don't have to. Let me just do this real quick for you too, just so you can see what I'm talking about. You know, I use servers and all that. You know, you guys might say, John, slow down, slow your roll, dude. I'm not using a server. I don't know what that means. Well, okay, let's plug the radio in. I'm going to select SD card. Select SD card. We'll go back over to the workspace so you can see my desktop. Okay, I've got my SD. See, this is important. You have to see this, okay? So we'll close the firmware folder. I'm going to go to my desktop now, and there it is. And I'm going to click a folder, make a folder called my SD card. You guys can put this wherever you want. My SD card, okay? Now, all you have to do is drag the stuff off your radio. There, boom, you're done. There's your backup. It's that simple, okay? It's that simple. And once you have the backup, it's real easy to put it back on your radio. You guys just saw me do that, okay? Okay, so SD card management is not a mystery. It doesn't have to be a mystery. This is not hard. It's not hard. You can just drag stuff. There are no special files when we're dealing with the radio folder itself. You know, I'm not talking about the firmware folder. I'm talking about the radio folder. There's nothing special about it. They're just files. There's nothing hidden. There's no hidden attributes thing anywhere. It's nothing elaborate. It's just files. Okay. So it's real easy to back your stuff up. All right. Now I'm going to go back into Companion and show you guys what a sync will look like, because we just got through copying from here to here. So I'm going to run a sync now, and I'm going to put it in both directions. And we'll say to the, I don't know, source folder first, and I'll click start, and there we go. So this is where Companion really can help you out if you're making modifications in two places at one time. You can run the synchronization tool, and it'll tell you what it's going to do. I had test checked up here. You can see it. So what it's saying is it's going to replace the radio bin file, probably because I did something on the radio when I turned it on. Maybe it timestamped it or something like that. And that's it. Finish synchronization. Now it does a synchronization in the other direction. So this is the test run from the server to the card, and it's saying, nope, I got no updates. So if I take test run off and do it, it's actually going to make those changes for me. And what do the British say? Bob's your uncle. I know we had Alan. You're from Britain. Help me out. What's Bob's your uncle, man? What's the nature of that? I think that's a funny phrase. It makes me laugh. Okay, so that's it. Okay, let me boil this down now. Let me boil this down into small parts. What I'm trying to say is that if you use Companion, learn to use the synchronization tool, because once you've got it worked out, it works really well. It's just a really nice tool to keep your stuff straight, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it. It's easy. If you don't want to use Companion, don't. Okay? If you just flat out don't want to use it, you don't care what John says, you don't care about my opinion in terms of why I say this is easy, then don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just do your backups though. And remember, when you're working in your radio, this directory structure is super important, okay? Nothing in Companion is going to work if you don't see that directory structure in the first place, all right? So that's it. Those are the main things on Companion I see in terms of gripes and people having problems with it working. And I can promise you, if you do what I showed you here, it's going to work, all right? Companion's going to work. It just works. But you have to make sure you do your part. You have to make sure that Companion can see your SD card and that your SD card has that typical structure. Now, let's see how our download's doing. Hey, our download's done. All right, let's get this guy out, because I see this all the time. This is another one that I get all the time. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to replicate it because I have a 2 gig card. Let's see. What does this say in terms of... What does this say? This says I've only used 90 megabytes. Okay. So here's what I think is happening when people say, hey, I'm trying to copy stuff over to my SD card and it doesn't work. Let me arrange my desktop a little bit so you guys can see this. Okay. here's the file. And again, I'm going to have a hard time because I have a 2 gig card. So it's going to be hard for me to replicate. But here's what I think is happening. I think what's happening is people are doing this. They're copying this thing over and it's saying, no, I can't do that. But let me just kind of show you here. You guys know that this is my operating set of data on my SD card, right? This is the operating set of data right here that I have on my SD card. So whenever you get the SD card contents, you can simply open them up, extract them. We'll leave it on the desktop. And hopefully this will go nice and fast. Yeah, guys, while we're waiting for that, I definitely would appreciate the likes. Bob's your uncle. Alan says, Bob's your uncle. There you go. Okay, there you go. Okay, so we're extracting the SD card contents. Now, this is a question I get quite a bit too. I get this question. It seems like it happens 2 to 3 times a week. Hey, I'm trying to copy the SD card contents and I'm getting an out of space error. Well, something's wrong when you do that. And let me walk you through why. Let me just walk you through why. As soon as this is done unpacking, I'll show you why you got something, why something's missing, right? We're not covering the bases somehow. We missed something. So in Windows, you can right click a folder and click properties and you can see the size of the folder. And in this folder right now, this says this is 139 megabytes. Okay, size on disk is 145. So this folder, when it's unpacked, notice it doesn't have the little zipper icon. When it's unpacked, it has a file size on the disk of 145 megabytes. Okay. Now, when we look at our SD card, we can look at our SD card and say, all right, we'll click on properties on that. And we can see that it uses 90 megabytes. Now, let's say for argument's sake that you have a 256 megabyte disk or SD card in your radio, because that's what they come with. If you look at that and say, well, I'm running out of space, if you take these two numbers and add them together, the first thing I'll tell you is that we're only with the stock configuration, well, not stock, with an operating configuration of OpenTx, I'm only using 95 megs. And that includes Amber, by the way. That includes Amber, okay? So 95 megs. The stock SD card contents are 145 megs. So if you add those two together, you're still below 250 megs, okay? But let's just copy and see what happens. Let's just copy it and see what happens. I'm gonna open up my SD card, and now I'm gonna close this little properties box, and I'm gonna open up my archive, and I'm gonna take the new stuff, and I'm gonna copy it to the radio. I'm just gonna copy it over and let it go. Now, what's going to happen is Windows is going to say, wait a minute, there are some duplicates here, and it's going to complain. So it's going to complain about the duplicates, and it's going to give you options. Now, if one of the options you take is keep copies of both files, yeah, I could see how you could run out of space. But if you just say, hey, overwrite stuff because you're using a new version of the software, a new version of the SD card contents, so if you have the same file name, overwrite the old stuff, it should be fine because that's the nature of an upgrade. You're replacing old stuff with new stuff, right? So what'll happen is Windows eventually is going to say, wait a minute, we have some duplicates. Okay, I'm going to let that do its thing. And while that's doing its thing, I'm going to show you guys another cool trick in Companion. So let's bring up Companion. We'll let that copy, and I want to show you guys a cool trick in Companion if you've never seen this before. And I can read my models and settings now because we've updated the radio. So there we go. There's my models and settings. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into, because I happen to know where this exists. I'm going to show you guys this one. It's really cool. Models, lemon test. I'm going to show you this text in just a minute. But I'm going to go into my, I have my Microsoft Flight Simulators highlighted. Under checklist, I'm going to show you guys a cool little gadget on checklist. So I'm going to hit display checklist, edit checklist, and I'm going to paste stuff in. All right. So notice, look at the text here on the screen. I've got this little thing that says SG and the backslash up and then RS backslash down. And oh, I misspelled that. Spillerons. I don't know what spillerons are. Those are spoilerons. And we'll call this the MSFS test. Okay. So I've pasted some text in. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have to write this to the SD card. Let's see. I don't know if I have to write it or not. I'm gonna write the model settings to the SD card, that's for sure. Now, when you write, Notice what happens, this little icon on the left, it turns blue when you press the right button, and it'll stay blue. Now, the reason it's not responding is because I'm already doing stuff to that SD card. I'm already kind of hammering it a little bit. That's why I'm getting that error. So I'm not worried about that. We just got to wait for this copy to finish. 7 minutes, man. I'll tell you what, file management on Windows takes too long. It needs to be faster. Let me see. I'll tell you what. Well, I'm queued up right now. While that's all going, I'm going to check comments. Let's see. Not supported. Buy a new radio, says B Stern. Drone Pilot. That in the setting where you can change top bar color, main color, text color, black, white background. Read and go into simulator and you'll see monochrome anyway. Okay. As a matter of fact, I just installed 2311 on the weekend on the radios and upgraded companion. Good job, Lasersby. Sid says, good evening. Got my TX16S. Started watching your vids. Very useful. Thanks for all. Oh, you're welcome. All right. Let's see. For those using Mac, mine takes about 10 to 15 seconds for the SD card to show in the list of devices after I connect to the computer. Just be patient. Hey, you know, Alan, I was seeing a similar issue in Windows as well, and I changed the SD card and that went away. So I also think it has something to do with how the operating system is reading the SD card through the computer interface. I'm just saying, I think that's got something to do with it. I'm not sure, but I believe that's the case. Okay, so let's see. Darren Ray says, agreed, best out there. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. All right, can't see the outputs. The chat screen is superimposed. The outputs on, when we were doing the extended limits. Yeah, I can show you that real quick. I can show you that. Give me a second. Oh, I don't remember. I think we did a new one, right? Let me do a new one again, Lasersby, and I'll do a new model. I'll cancel, and we'll look at the outputs right here. So outputs, there we go. So all I did is I went in the output screen in this field right here, and I added a -150, and in the Mac side, well, see, now by the way, you see how it says only 15%? That's because I don't have extended limits added. You have to go into the setup, the model setup, and turn on extended limits. There we go. And with that added, now you can go into the outputs and set it to -150. And 150. So there you go. That's it on the outputs, okay? Sorry about that. I got a couple of different screens going here. It's actually a lot happening. So apologize for that. Darren says it's 6 a.m. here. I'm on my daily commute to work on the train. What better way to spend the morning? Hey, appreciate that, Darren. Hope you have a good day at work. Angry Pepper, don't worry, man. You can always go back and watch it again. It'll post. All right, let's see. Nice. Not mine. It really blew. Sorry, forgot to hit like. Yep, lots of thumbs up. Companion is off. Props off. It is, man. Companion's it is very cool. All right. By the way, John, my TX16 Max came with a no name. Yeah, Lasersby, they generally do. I mean, I don't even know if you can buy retail 256 meg cards these days, but I think what I have in my radio now is just a cheap 2 gig that I found laying around, and it does fine. This radio, along with OpenTx, is just like our Teslas. It just keeps getting better with age. Yeah, it's good stuff. But if you put it on a thumb drive, you use no space. I don't know what you mean by thumb drive, Angry Pepper, but if you want, you're talking about backing it up. Yeah, you can back it up to a thumb drive, but it really doesn't use that much space to begin with. Lasersby changed my SD cards for $349. Yeah, that's a thing. Airwaves Ted, to reduce SD card size, you can delete the language. Yeah, oh yeah, we'll talk about that, Airwaves Ted. Yep, that's a great point, and we will talk about. I hadn't gotten there yet, but we will cover that. I just hadn't gotten to that point yet. I'm trying to keep it, trying to keep it stock for the moment, but we will definitely get to that. So we're still copying. Man, that's terrible. And I don't have a slow computer either. All right. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we can do, because I wanted, this is the quiz part. I told you guys there would be a quiz, and I wanted to do some recipes. So what I mean by recipes is this is another area of conversation I constantly get into with people on the radio setups, and it's always related to input. So I wanted to do a quiz. All right. We're going to have a little quiz. And somebody else suggested, hey, let's go through some examples. Let's go through some examples on the class. And I thought, okay, we can do the class. We can do examples in the class. So I want to do one example. And the one example I want to ask you guys is this one. Let's say I'm starting with a new model. And in my new model, and you guys saw how I created this, right? If you didn't, I'm just going to do it again because it's super fast. I'm going to hit new model, now cancel, and there it is. I've got a model. All right. In the new model, when you make this is, you guys got to pay attention, man. Get your radios out because I want you to go through this with me. And part of the reason I'm asking you guys to go through this with me is to help me, to help me out because I have this conversation weekly. And I think that if we can tackle this collectively together and everybody gets spooled up on this, that we can be a powerful force. So if I were to tell you that this airplane is not a Ttail, you guys recognize this configuration. This is a Ttail, right? Aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder. That's a Ttail. That's a standard conventional airplane. Okay. So if I were to tell you guys, this is not a Ttail, this is a wing. All right. This is just a wing. Or a plank, but the bottom line is you only have two control surfaces. You have a left aileron elevon, and you have a right elevon. What would you do to inputs? So go ahead and get your radios out. Take a look and cheat if you want to, but tell me what you would do to inputs. Angry Peppers Radio Fried. Well, get Companion, buddy. Get Companion out and play along in Companion. You can do it there too. That's the thing, that's one of the messages I've been trying to get across on Companion is that Companion is a software representation of your radio. So get Companion out and do it in Companion. But I'm asking you guys, play along with me. If you were making a wing, what would your input screen look like? What would you do to this input screen? This is OpenTx. Sagar says, sir, which software are you using? This is OpenTx Companion. And don't call me sir, man. That's two demerits. Two demerits. It's just John. Jim says, I want to add a pan and tilt. Okay, Jim, we're talking about mixes right now. Stay with the plot, man. Okay, so guys, if you were doing your inputs, what would you do to this screen if you were making a delta wing? You got aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder. What would you guys do to this? Anybody? This is a quiz. Come on. I know some of you guys know. Jerry, come on, man. I know you know. And by the way, no flight computer. So let's just assume this is like a straight up wing, no flight computer. Okay? Okay, well, I'll let you guys think about it. I'm going to go ahead and look and see how we're doing on the copy. That's coming along. Okay, wait, we got someone. Airwaves Ted says, duplicate aileron and elevator and reduce all weights to 50 in reverse as needed. Okay, so this is the mixer, Airwaves Ted. So this is the mixer, aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder. So William Cox says nothing. All right, here's what I would do. I would delete this. I would delete this and take that out. Whoops. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. That's wrong. That was wrong. This is what I love about Companion. Let me get right back to where we were. Okay, so here we go. Back to inputs. I would delete this one only. Line, delete. Sorry. There it is, delete. I would delete the rudder. And I would leave this aileron. And I would leave this elevator. And I would leave that throttle. Okay? So now we've got one servo on the aileron. Or no. Sorry. That's misspeaking. This is how easy it is to get tripped up. We have one input, that's the aileron stick. And I want to make sure the radio, you guys can see it. There we go. So the input connects this stick to the software. This stick, not this stick and this stick, not this stick and this stick. It's just this stick, this aileron stick. That's all this line does. This line connects this aileron motion to software. Okay? It was in software. Yeah, Airwaves Ted, I get that a lot, man. That's what people do. They skip around, and me, I always treat OpenTx like a building a house. You start with foundation. In order to build this configuration for a delta wing, you got to have your inputs set correctly. You have to identify that. So we're in the input screen. We've connected now our aileron to. Okay, here we go. Here's the error message. I was waiting for this. So here's the thing you want to select, okay? Windows said, hey, 664 files with the same names, replace them. That's what we're doing. We're upgrading the card. So just hit replace and then let it go back to doing its thing. Okay, so back to the inputs line. We're in the inputs line, we have one aileron stick, we have one elevator stick, and we have one throttle stick. Those are our controls for the plane. Now, I've seen people come in here and add a second aileron and a second elevator. No. That's not, you only have one aileron stick. This is the input. You only have one of these, so you don't have one input line. Okay. Now in the mixes, let's go ahead and go into the mixes and take a look. And you guys can see we've got aileron, elevator, throttle, and we have channel 4 that's not identified. We'll delete that. Now let's talk about what to do here. Airwaves, Ted. Yeah, I know. And that's why I said in the beginning, we're just talking about a plain wing with only 2 control surfaces. So I said that. I said we're talking about a simple wing with just a left aileron and a right aileron. That's it. Okay, that's how I started this one. So that's what we're talking about. Okay, so now on the mixer, on channel 1, channel 2, we have our aileron, elevator, throttle. I'll give you a tip. We're not going to do anything with this one. So in this configuration, in this mix, what would you guys do? What would you guys do to this in order to set up a simple 2 control surface wing that has a left aileron, right aileron only? No rudder, no other thing, just those 2. All right, what would you guys do in the mixer for that? And let me move this aside a little bit so I can let you guys see. Hopefully, there you go. Hopefully you can see the chat a little better. Okay, while you guys are thinking about it, I'll give you a tip. I'm going to go in here and say, I would set this weight to 50. And I would set this weight to 50. I'd start there. And the reason for that is because when you set up a wing like this, you only want the elevator to be able to account for 50% of the overall travel. And the same thing with the aileron. You only want the aileron to account for 50% of your overall travel. So that's where I'd start. On my throttle line, I wouldn't do a thing. I'd leave that alone just the way it is. Okay? So anybody have a suggestion on what we would do in the mixer to make this a delta wing configuration? Any ideas? So inputs were done. We're not going to make any changes there. We simply have one aileron stick. We have one elevator stick, and that's it. That's all we've got. And we've got one throttle stick. That's not really a control surface, but we have one throttle stick. That's the input. Okay, so on the mixes, aileron weight, elevator weight, throttle. What else would you guys do to this to mix up your delta wing? I'm not seeing any takers, so I'll start the conversation by saying on the aileron, and by the way, let's look at the simulator. I'm going to, great. I'm going to delay a little bit and see, let's see if I can save this. I have an error. All right, let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so in the output screen, I have one aileron, that's channel 1, and I can only go 50%, and I have one elevator, and that can only go 50%. Okay, that's all we've got so far on our mixer. We've got one elevator going up and down. We've got one aileron going right and left. Okay, so let's see. Add elevator mix to aileron, Alan C, and add an aileron mix to elevator. Perfect. Let's do that. So Alan says add an elevator mix to aileron. Okay, so in this case, it's the aileron that we want to mix. That's the thing that needs to be adjusted. And the thing that's going to do the adjustment is the elevator stick. So here's what I would do. I'll just copy this one. I'll hit copy. And then I will hit paste. And notice we've got now an elevator right below our aileron. So I'll probably need to invert that. Although I'll be honest with you guys, this requires testing. You have to see on the radio what's going to happen. So Alan says, add an elevator mix to aileron. That's what I did there. I added the elevator to the aileron, and he says, add an aileron mix to the elevator. Okay, so I'll copy this one, copy, and I'm going to come here and hit paste. And I'm probably going to reverse this one too, and I'll just change that to a negative. That's how I reverse that, is just change the weight. Okay, so now let's take a look and see what happens. I'm going to hit the simulator, and we'll see what happens when I move the aileron. Look at that. Look at channel 2 now. You see how channel 1 and channel 2, let me lock this so you guys can see it. I'm going to make a right-hand turn, and look what happens on the output. Channel 1 goes up and channel 2 goes down. You see that? Channel 1 Channel 1 goes up and channel 2 goes down. That looks correct to me. If I were looking at this without ever connecting it to an airplane, I'd say that's correct, because that's what an aileron should look like. One goes up, one goes down, right? I don't know if they're going the right direction or not, but that's what it should look like. Now let's look at the elevator. Now if I do elevator, well, that's a problem. Now that's a problem because look, when I move the elevator, we've got one elevator side going up and the other going down. That's no good. That's no good. You can't have that. So how do we fix that? We go back and we pick one of these two guys, and it might be the one that I got wrong here. And instead of having -50, we'll just leave it at 50. So I'll hit simulate again. I'm going to lock the elevator and I'm going to pull this back. Come on, let's go. There we go. Now look what happens when I move that elevator. You see how the channel right here goes, both channels 1 and 2, both sides of the control surfaces both go in the same direction when you move the elevator. Okay, so they both go up, they both go down, and when I move right and left, one goes up, one goes down. That is an elevator mix. That's a mix for a delta wing. That's it. It's that simple. Okay, that's it. So Alan, you get the gold star. Good job. Now let's go in and do one other thing, because this is another thing that I get. Your chat is in the way of seeing the mixes. Let me. Okay, you guys can't see the mixes? Or were you talking about the mixes on the simulator? Yeah, sorry about that. Oh gosh, sorry about that. I can't see that screen. I'll just do this. There we go. There we go. That'll do it. Okay, so back to the mixes. Sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know, Robert. Appreciate that. So here, I'll just do it again. So I'm moving my aileron, and you can see how the aileron left and right? On channels, I'm going to lock these two so I can move them. Okay, see on channels 1 and 2, this is your aileron output and your elevator output. When I move the aileron stick, one goes up, one goes down. That's correct. That's always correct when it comes to an aileron. And now with the elevator, I've got both up and both down. So I'm not sure if that's the right direction. I might have to invert that, but that is the correct appearance, right? That's the correct appearance, because when I think I can unlock that. When I move this up and down, let's see, can I lock this too? Prevent vertical, prevent horizontal. Yeah, there we go. So now when I move this up and down, you can see both of the elevators going up and down. And by the way, this is why we stop at 50. We stop at 50. And the reason we stop at 50 is because if I have all the way up elevator, see how I've got elevator all the way up at 50? Now I can still add all the way right aileron, and I terminate at 100% on channel 1. Okay? So that's why we use 50%. We don't use 50. You got to use 50%, because if you don't, if I set them both at 100, you can overdrive the output, or you could have one control using up all the deflection. So we use 50% because on a wing, both the elevator and aileron have to have a share of the throw. Okay, so when I move this elevator all the way up, notice that the highest I can go is 50%. Now when I move the aileron all the way to the next side, I notice on channel 2, I now have 100%. Okay, and also notice that channel 1 is back down to 0, which is where it's 100 points lower, but it's half the travel. It accounts for half the travel. All right, so that's why we use 50% on the mixer for the aileron and the elevator. Now let's talk about dual rates, because that's the next question, and this is what I think throws a monkey wrench into it for everybody. So you guys, on the simulator real quick, just one more time, I just want you guys to see that we have 50% on the aileron when I go full deflection, and we've got another 50% on the elevator when we go full deflection. Okay, so we have 100% throw, 100% throw, 100% throw, 100% throw. Okay, now let's go in and set up our dual rates, and I'm just going to say for the aileron, I want to do line, we'll duplicate this one, and I will set this to be switch SA up, and I will set this one to be switch not SA up, and I'm going to set this one to be 50. Okay, so this is high rates, this is low rates, and we'll do the same thing for the elevator. I'm going to hit line, duplicate, we'll set this guy to be SA up, and we'll set this guy to be not SA up. And I'll set this weight to be 50. Okay, so now we have dual rates. Watch what happens in the simulator when we do this. That was SA up and not SA up. So SA, of course, is all the way over here, wrong side. I should have used SJ, but oh well. It's SA up. Okay, so SA up is our high rates. That should give us our normal performance. We should see the 100, 100, 100, 100. Okay, we got it. That's normal performance. Now I'm going to put the SA switch to anything but up, and we should see our throw cut in half. Okay, so when I go all the way up, notice I'm at 25, 25, 25, 25. If I go all the way over to the side, and it's when I say half, remember our weight is 50. So when I move the aileron all the way over to the right, we're no longer at 50, we're only at 25. Okay? So 25 on the ailerons, and then 25, or let's see, the elevator. What happened there? Something not right. The elevator's not moving at all. What happened there? Yeah, that's not right. The elevator. Well, the ailerons are working. I don't know why the elevator's not working. But that's what should happen. That's what I think there might be a bug in the software, because this is, let me get rid of this real quick. What am I missing here? Switch is up, not up. What am I missing? I don't know why that elevator is not moving. Oh, for some reason that's moving. There's a bug. There's a bug. So when I put it in a down position, it works. So yeah, there you go. You can see the elevators working 25 and 25. That looks like a bug in Companion to me, because I used up and not up. And that was definitely, oh, I see the bug. Nah, my fault. Dang it. It's not mid, it's up. It's got to be not SA up. That was my fault. See, this is why I like Companion. It teaches you. Okay, now we should be able to see it. So not SA up, I'll put it here in the middle position, and we should have elevator at half. There we go, 25%, 25%. So there you go. That's how you add dual rates. You don't have to go into your mixers and add stuff. That's the reason we use inputs in the first place. Yeah, Alan C, thanks for catching that. So you don't have to add it in the mixer, right? The dual rates come here, and everything that you do here is applied downstream. So the main thing to remember is that your inputs feed your mixes, and your mixes feed your outputs. Okay, the outputs are the last thing that happen on the radio, and you can also limit your throw here as well. But for a standard configuration, unless you have a reason to do that, I advise against it. You know, there are cases when you do it. Say if you're using a flight computer that needs 1,000 to 2,000 microseconds, you could set those ranges in here. Or if you're using an ESC like Castle ESC, they like to see a certain range for their calibration process on their ESCs. You do things like that in here. But for managing dual rates, you simply manage it on the inputs, and then anything you do here feeds the downstream. It feeds the mix. Okay, so the input connects the stick to software, and then you set up your dual rates, and then the inputs feeds the mixer, and the mixer is what combines these two surfaces that you've defined for your output. And then it's finally sent to the output tab, and that leaves the radio out the transmitter and onto the receiver. Okay, so that's just a quick little recipe that I wanted to do to show you guys. Here's a basic way to assemble a configuration. Now, the other thing that happens quite a bit on, oh yeah, Darren says, can you explain why using not SA is important? Yes, I can. Just a moment. The reason I wanted to walk through this is because when it comes to mixing, there's an infinite variety of combinations that you can have. Infinite variety of combinations you can have. And it doesn't matter how many videos I do on this topic, there's always one more. There's always one more. So what I'm going to encourage you guys to do is when I do a mix video, just consider the process more than the surface, right? Consider the process that I'm going through more so than what surface am I changing. Because if you can understand the process, then it really doesn't matter. Whatever thing you want to mix, you'll be able to go, well, I know how to do that. This is the thing that needs to be mixed. This is the thing that's going to do the mixing, and you'll figure out real fast how to make those changes. Okay, Darren, thank you for that. I appreciate you guys. This is what I love about you guys. Sharp eyes. Darren's really smart. I didn't spend a moment on that, and I should have. Very, very smart. Darren says, hey, can you explain why use not SA is important? And the reason is because OpenTx has rules about traps. It traps at a certain level. So if OpenTx encounters a condition, it'll stop there and say, well, I'm done processing. I encountered that condition. I'm done. I'm not going to process any further. So the reason in this example, I use SA up and not SA up was because what if I said, for example, let's do SA mid. All right. That might be a reasonable thing to do. What if I said I want to set these for SA mid? That's not unreasonable. And by the way, if you're going to use a 3-position switch, or three rates, you would use SA up, mid, and down. But let's just say I used SA mid. Now I'm going to bring up the model, and I'm going to have to tab over a little bit. So page, there we go. And I'm going to bring this guy down. Now look what happens here. So I have SA up, and you see the bold, okay? You see how this says this line is bold at 100% SA up, all right? That means that's selected. Now, if I go SA middle, now you can see that my second line is selected, and that's awesome. That's exactly what we want to have happen. But what if I'm flying and I put it in SA down? Now what have I got? Now I've got nothing. I have no outputs because watch, look at my output. I'll move it so the chat window doesn't get it. Whoops. Windows, come on, dude. Stop adjusting my stuff. Now, look, I'm moving my aileron stick. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. The reason nothing's happening is because I moved my rate switch into a position that doesn't have an input defined. So that's dangerous. That's a bad thing. And you can wind up turning off your mixer by doing that. You're turning off your input. You just created a condition. You said this stick is no longer connected to anything in software. Therefore, the model can't process anything. And that's why when I move this aileron stick right now, you're not seeing any mix movement or any output movement. It's because I've told the radio there is no input. I've turned it off. The only input I have is throttle. That's all I've got. Okay. So now if we go and turn SA back to the middle position, you can see that the middle line is highlighted. Now watch what happens. Hey, where did it go? Looks like my screen just left for some reason. Oh, there it is. Okay. So now you guys can see that I've got the SA switch in the middle position and it's bold. So now that it's bold, when I move that aileron stick, look what happens to my output. See, I've got movement. Now, if I move it to the up position, it's now on line 1 and I have outputs because when I move my stick, I can see it. So that's why I use SA up and not SA up when I'm only doing 2 rates. When I'm only doing 2 rates, I do a very firm, this is the condition, SA up. And then I do, if it's not SA up, then any other position I put this switch in, it should be the mid rates. Okay. So that's why I use not SA up. All right. I use SA up, not SA up, and that's good for dual rates. If you want to use triple rates, then instead of doing this, you would do SA up, SA mid, and SA down. Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm going to go back to our SD thing and just wrap that up. So it looks like we're done. It looks like we finished that. So we've done our copy, and notice that I took all of this data and I copied it over on top of this data, and I didn't get any errors on size, nor should I, because when I go back to this computer and I right click on my SD card, remember it was like 140 megs, right? Now it's saying I'm using 220, but I know why. The reason it's using 220 is because I have not only now Amber, I also have all the stock sounds. So somebody earlier on said, hey, talk about stock sounds. Let me show you that real quick. If you use Amber, you can go in the sound, or sorry, not Amber. If, let's say, for example, you're an English speaker. You see in this the sounds folder, this is the stock card. You've got Dutch, Czech, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, Russian. You can delete all this stuff. If you're an English speaker, you delete it all and get rid of it. You delete that, delete that, delete that. And there we go. You're down to just English, and you've saved quite a bit of space by doing that. Okay. So that was the sounds folder. You can save some space doing that. And I guarantee you with that deleted, if I redid this copy, which I'm not going to do because that took way too long, then I would save quite a bit of space on my TX16S SD card. It doesn't need to be there. Okay. So that's how you extract. The objective here was to extract the contents, get the contents, highlight them, and drag them over to our card, and show you that when you do that, as long as you pick the right error message saying just replace, you should never get an out of space error message on the card. You should never get that. All right. That's what we were trying to copy there or accomplish there. And I think we did that. Okay. The other thing I wanted to accomplish was the recipe, you know, the concept of building the cake. So hopefully we did some of that today. We started with a basic model, and then we went through and cleaned up things that we didn't need to use. We added our dual rates, we added our mix, and we checked it out in the simulator, and we saw that when we do things the right way in OpenTx, we get a functional model. So that's kind of where I wanted to go today, guys. So that wraps up the content. I think that wraps up most of what I wanted to do. Oh, and we showed the SD card synchronization tools. That was the other thing that I wanted to cover because I get so many questions on that one. If you're using Companion, don't be afraid to set this up and try it. Just do yourself a favor until you get all your scenarios worked out. Just put test run. That's all you got to do is just click this little test run box, and you can't hurt anything. It won't damage anything. It'll just tell you what it would have done. Okay. Stock sounds don't have rates, which is why I downloaded Amber. Yeah, Darren, me too. Yeah, that's one of the main reasons. Amber's got a lot of little tricks up her sleeve. So a lot of sounds that you kind of need. I don't know why they didn't do high, medium, and low. Okay, let's see. You have to explain to the team why using SA is important, not SA is important. Yep, we did that. Thanks again, Darren, for pointing that out. I do appreciate that. For those of you guys who have the understanding of why you do things like that, I do appreciate you guys keeping me honest like that. You know, I kind of move through things fast just to keep the interest level high, and so sometimes I miss some things. All right, to help on the mixes page, name the channels. Oh yeah, Alan, good point. Yep, let's do that. That's a good one because that's another one I'm terrible at doing. I'm terrible at doing that. What he's saying is on the outputs page, you can label this stuff, and this does show up oddly enough. So you can label this. You can call that one aileron and that one elevator. It's not a bad idea to keep those synchronized, and I am literally terrible at that. One of the main reasons you want to label them is because when you bring up the channel monitor, you see those labels right here. So good call on that, Alan. Good catch. Very good. All right, Darren Ray, you're the man. What do you get? Let's see. How do you get what you are now showing, says Randall, all three views? I'm not sure. Randall, help me out with the question. I'm not sure what you're asking me. William Cox says, good tip, John. You're welcome. Glad you liked it. Daniel, I noticed something strange with my Spectrum receivers today. When I use Safe Select with the Radio Master, I get a big climb angle on my elevator. It does not happen when I use Spectrum Radio. Yeah, I'd troubleshoot that on the ground. I'm not, you know, Daniel, I'm gonna do you a favor, man, because I know literally nothing about Spectrum. Get with Dave at RC Air Marshal on YouTube. He knows some OpenTx, and he knows Spectrum pretty well. I bet you he could probably help you out. I'm not trying to bail on you, but just ask these guys. I don't know jack about Spectrum. Like I've only touched one time at a field, and it was to help some guy set up flaps. That's it. Other than that, I've never touched one. So check with RC Air Marshal. Dave at RC Air Marshal, good guy. He'll be able to help you out. Or join our Discord. You can join our Discord. There's a lot of guys on our Discord too that probably know the answer to your question, but I don't know, man. I don't use Spectrum at all. Steve, Robert Mann, nice name. Stock sounds don't have rates. Great video. Keep up the good work. Ray, you're welcome. Pete Buttons, could you please show adding an audio function to do a... Oh yeah, sure. Pete, no problem. There's two ways you can do that. That's a good question. I actually have a video on that, but since we're here, not a problem. I'll do that. Let's show. So here's the question. Pete says, can you show how to add an audio function for something like dual rates? So sure, I'll show you two ways to do it. So if we go back to our inputs, you notice how we've got SA up and not SA up, okay? So to add an audible prompt to that, we'll go to special functions and we'll say, when SA is up, we're going to, by the way, this is another reason I like Amber. Or Companion is because if you have Amber, you know that these tracks, look at how many tracks are here. Look at that. When you're on the radio, that just kind of sucks, scrolling through all that. So when you're on a computer, this is really nice. I mean, all I have to do is say, I want high rates right there. And I can play it.
High rates.
There we go. Can you guys hear that?
High rates.
There's Amber. She says high rates. Okay, so when SA is up, I get high rates. When I got not SA up, I'm going to play a track. And by the way, just to show you guys, here, hold on. Let me clear this. Clear. Yes. So if you want, this is not obvious. This is a pro tip, okay? Check this out. You see how I got SF1 here with SA and the play track? If I right click on SF1, I can hit copy, and then on SF2, I can hit paste. And look at that. That's a pro tip. Only on RC video reviews do you learn that kind of stuff. Just remember that. Okay, so there's high rates, and now I'm going to press L and go down to the L section and hit low rates. So we'll hit low rates.
Low rates.
Okay, now if I bring up my simulator, if I bring up my simulator, we'll click on simulate, and I'll get Amber talking to us.
Low rates.
You turn the volume up a little. There you go.
High rates. Low rates.
Did I screw something up? I bet I did, because she's saying both things on the same switch. It should be not SA up. There we go. Okay. So there we go, Amber. There's high rates, and then low rates. High rate?
Low rates.
Low rates.
High rates. Low rates.
Okay, now I'm going to show you one cool trick about this that not a lot of people know either. Watch this. On the right-hand side, if you say played once, not during startup, and you do the same thing here, what happens is now when we fire up our radio or a simulator, she doesn't say it on the onset. Okay? Well, she made a liar out of me. Okay, let's try that again. She made a liar out of me. She shouldn't say anything.
High rates.
Oh, that's broken. That's not supposed to happen. When you say play once, not during startup, what that means is that she won't say it. On the radio, she won't say it. When you turn the radio on with this option enabled, on the radio, by the way, it looks like an exclamation 1X. When you have that turned on, she won't say it when you first fire up the radio. Okay? Now, that's one way to do it. Let's clear those out, and I'll show you another thing that you can do too. I'm just going to clear these. Clear, clear, clear. Those are gone. Okay, close that. Now, I'm going to go into radio settings, and I want you guys to see what I have under global function. You see this RTE, play track, high rate, mid rate. Oh, that's why she's doing it. I don't know, man. That's not it either. But you can also do it under global function. Under global functions. So under global functions now, because I have it in this section of the radio configuration, it doesn't matter what radio I use or what model I use. The rate switch, which in my case is the SB, Sierra Boy, because I'm using the SB switch for rate, I always get high, mid, and low rates when I move that SB switch. And in case you want to know how I labeled RTE, I have a video on this as well right here. On my SB switch, I gave it a name rate. On my SC is mode. My S2 is backlight. My S1 is volume. That's why in here I have RTE. Okay. When you label it, there you go. Pete Button, you're welcome. That was awesome. Yep. No problem, man. Glad to help. And that works universally. You know, you can play tracks, you can play sounds, you can play whatever you want. So, universal. Okay, wish I could generate Nirvana NV14 sound. I don't know what that is. Is that a band? You're not talking about the band. Both files are still there, but the radio only sees the renamed WAV file. Any clue? By the way, I copied a WAV file from the SD card to sounds, but the radio would not see it until I renamed it. I don't know, Lasersby. I don't know. That's there. A lot of times it has something to do with reloading, because I know that it's not as simple as just dropping a WAV file all the time. So I'm not sure, man. I think you might have to reload the radio, like reload the model. And by the way, for doing that, if you've never done it before, there's an option on the main screen. So if you long press the jog dial, you can go, come on. Oh, I'm plugged in. That's why. Sorry. Wait for the USB icon to go away, and I'll long press the jog dial, and there's an option here called reset. And if you hit reset and then click on reset flight, it reloads that model. So it brought up my display checklist. Oh, that was the other thing we were doing, the checklist. Yeah, we didn't finish that up. Let's finish that up. So let's do that. I didn't finish the checklist up. I'm going to clean things up a little bit and get rid of all whatever extra nonsense I have going on. Yeah, I'm glad I just saw that. I did want to show you guys that checklist, because that's another cool little pro tip. So we'll read the models in. I'm going to go into, I was in the Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'll open that up and I'll edit the checklist. Okay, that's there. And then I just guess we have to synchronize this. Test run. Nope. Turn that off. There it is. See, replacing file, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. That's the checklist file. All right, while that's going, I'm going to check and see if there's any other questions. Wish I could generate. Okay, in plane setup, you can disable global functions per model. Yeah, Chris, you can do that. You know, honestly, my advice is to not do that. And the reason I say that is because global functions are meant to be global. And the idea is that now if you turn that off in some, now you're having this fight eventually that says, wait, do I have rates on this or do I not have rates on this? So you're right, you can do it, but it really, in my opinion, to me personally, this is my point of view. And oh, by the way, if you guys don't know me, I want to spend a moment just telling you that too. I have opinions. There are certain things that are opinions and certain things that are facts. So what Chris said is a fact. You can turn global settings off per model if you choose to. In fact, in a moment, I'll show you how to do it. So you can do that. That's a fact. Okay. Now I'm going to give you opinion. In opinion, everybody knows what we say about opinions, right? My opinion is don't do that because it can create problems later for you down the road trying to remember, do I have them on? Do I have them off? So that's just an opinion. Take it for what you paid for it. All right. Okay. So we're still copying stuff over. And do I get to mess with this? I wonder if I get, oh, I do get to mess with it. Aha, they're not modal. Okay, cool. So here, under setup, here's what Chris was talking about. And I think under the model, I have a feeling that's, this is what he was saying, global functions. So when you have a check in there, it uses global functions. If you don't have a check, it doesn't use global functions. So in my Microsoft Flight Simulator, that's a case where I don't have rates and I didn't want anything like instant trim working. So in the simulator, I actually had that turned off. So there are certain use cases where it makes some sense, but for me, for flying my planes, they pretty much are always on. So just throwing that out there, but good point, Chris. Fair point. Put it that way. Nirvana M14 is the Fly Sky radio, really? And you want to get generate Nirvana M14 sounds? Yeah, you might be able to. There is a process. I've never done like a process on how you generate sounds for Radio Master, but I know it's out there. There are very specific things that you do. You know, you have to set, it's a WAV file with a certain bit rate and a certain encoding, but it can be done. It can be done. So maybe if you can get a sound pack for Nirvana and run it through the, you open the file and then you export it with Radio Master parameters or OpenTx parameters, you probably could convert them. All right, we're almost hopefully done copying. Man, I've done a lot of SD card manipulation today. I hope one thing you guys took away from this today on the SD card stuff is don't be afraid. Just back it up first. You know, if you back it up, that's why I kind of took that nuclear option in the beginning. Just back it up. And once you have it backed up, you can do anything you want. It doesn't matter. You really can't hurt it. The other thing, Angry Pepper, I hope you picked up something in here today too. You don't have to take the card out to do stuff. It's just, you can look at the radio like a great big SD card reader. I guess that's the best way to put it. You can look at it like a great big SD card reader. You don't need to take the SD card out to use it. It's just a great big thumb drive when it comes to USB data. All right. That's true. That's a fact. That is a true statement. It's just a great big thumb drive. That's all that's going on here. Okay, the RCVR Marshall, I'm a glutton for punishment. Use Google Text to speech generator that I record into Audacity and make my own customs. There you go. Yep, see, there's a process out there. Poutine FPV, I have a UMX Turbo Timber that I just purchased in the Radio Master TX16. I set up telemetry widget for the battery, but I don't see voltages in the screen. They just display 0. Probably because you're displaying set up telemetry widget for the battery. Yeah, it's probably because you're displaying pack voltage without telemetry source back to the radio. You have to have telemetry reporting your pack voltage back over the receiver, and you have to add the telemetry sensor first, and then you can read it as a voltage in the screen. That's another topic for another day, though, and I probably should do one on widgets. That's another one that I constantly get questions on, but Poutine FPV, just make sure like if you don't have a telemetry sensor for your flight pack voltage, you're never going to get voltage back on the radio. You have to have a sensor, and it has to be recognized by telemetry. And once you have that, then you'll be okay. It'll work. Okay, there we go. We're done copying. Now I'm going to reload the model. I'm going to do the big screen. So let's long press the jog dial, and we'll hit reset flight. And there's the checklist. That's the thing I wanted to show you guys. Look how cool that is. And I'll bring the text up on the screen again so you can see it. But when you have a checklist, notice that with that coding that I did, the \down and \up, you can actually have the little arrows in your checklist showing which way that switch position should be. That's what I was trying to show you. I've done a full video on a checklist, but I wanted to show you that. It's a neat little pro tip where you can actually have the arrows showing visibly which way it's supposed to be. And I'll go back to the big screen so you can see how I did that real quick. Let's see here. Close that, and I will find it. It's right here. Sync SD card models, and here's the text for that in case you guys missed it, or in case I went too fast earlier and kind of bebopped around a little bit. Here's the text for it. So if you use SG, meaning your switch, and then the \up, that's how you get that little arrow. That's how you get that little arrow right there. So just a cool little pro tip. If you're into making checklists, you can have the up arrow by using a /up or a /down for the down arrow. All right, let's see. I added the sensor and see the voltage, but not in the widget. All right, man, Discord. I can't troubleshoot that kind of stuff live, man. It's not possible. It's not possible. It winds up being a very detailed and complicated conversation that will wear other people out. So I have no way of troubleshooting that. Just join Discord, man. We'll talk about it. You can replace sound files in OpenTx SD card contents and then reload the SD card contents. Yeah, sure. All right. Well, hey guys, that covers the content I wanted to cover for today. I appreciate you guys joining me, and I hope that maybe this type of video will help you guys with troubleshooting and some of the fundamentals. And by the way, when you're on Discord or if you're in comments on the channel, don't be afraid. Like if you were here and you understand that stuff, don't be afraid to jump in and contribute. You know, don't be afraid to say something. You know, see something, say something. We get a lot of questions about inputs. We get a lot of questions about mixes. We get a lot of questions about SD cards. But you guys, you know, if you stuck through this, you probably have a pretty good understanding at this point. I mean, you're now getting to the point where there's not much else I can tell you. You know, there's not much else I can tell you after that. You know, beyond what I have shown you today, it becomes basic PD. You know, you just have to troubleshoot and say, okay, what's happening here, and do a little bit of work to try and sort it out. So if you guys made it this far in the video, don't feel for a second like you can't jump in and help people out, you know, and leave comments or answer comments, or if you're on Discord, you know, feel free to help other people out. So I hope you enjoyed the content. I hope you learned something new. I had fun talking with you guys about it today. And for those of you who are helping put some emphasis on certain points, I do appreciate that. Keep those kinds of comments coming. That's always useful to me. I try to be thorough, but you know, it's easy to miss a little nugget here or there. No doubt about it. All right, guys, that's all I've got for today. Thanks for joining me. Take it easy.